There we go. I see you.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Check, check, check.
Oh, there we go. Okay. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So,
I will hang up on the phone. You can give Melissa her phone back.
all right, here you go. So,
Hey, Sean,
oh, you,
David Morton, the man so nice they named him thrice. How's it going?
you look like you're in a Denny's.
Oh,
what's
what?
your,
A Denny's?
yeah, it looks like early American Dunkin' Donuts or Winchell's or something, I suppose. Is that where all your podcasts are done from?
No, I got new roommates and they took over my my spare room which I used to use the
Oh,
podcast
jeez.
for. So,
Got to break them in and all that stuff.
oh my God. But you know what?
Adam, Adam Smith, author of Wealth of Nations and The Invisible Hand. And I suppose you've read all of Adam Smith's books, right?
You know, I
Can you hear
I
me
pro-
okay?
I hear you great. This is
Okay. All
awesome.
right. Let me adjust this here. Stand by. All righty, righty.
You could
Uh,
come up a little if you wanted to, but you I can hear you good.
all right, stand by. One, two, one, two. There we go. That way. Get this.
Da 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 da.
Okay. All right. I think we're okay. Let me know when you want to start.
All right.
Uh,
I'll do
you
that
got.
same intro again because I like that one. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the man so nice they named him thrice, Mr. Sean David Morton. How you doing, Sean?
Doing good. Thanks. Can you can you hear that music?
I can.
Okay. There we go. There's just a little theme music for you there,
Is
Sean.
that the Strange Universe intro?
That's the Strange Universe info right there. If you want to,
Bong.
if you want, if you want to sing along, you can. It's like from sea to sea, from planet to planet, and star to shining star. It's the Adam Smith Show, ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from the local Denny's slash Dunkin' Donuts, where you get an extra stack of pancakes for free.
It's true.
All right,
It's true.
all right, there you are.
Out of the
Okay,
night
go ahead,
into the light.
take it off. Yes,
Yes.
there you go. Out of the night into the light.
Very good. Oh yeah.
Conspiracy from conspiracy theory to conspiracy facts. So that's where we're at, right?
You used to say conspiracy theory to conspiracy reality.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. You're very good. See,
I'm telling you, I've been listening for ages, man. Since
thank
before
you.
the clink, or should the summer
Uh,
camp, as you
yeah, the
so
summer camp. My time in art school for
art
doing
school.
nothing. But you've arrived when these bastards decide to just make up a bunch of shit and spend $75 million to put you in
God
prison for 4 years.
damn, man, that's
It was crazy, and I was like, I can't. The whole time I was like, what did I do? I don't understand. Why don't you explain to me what I did? And they
right.
couldn't come up with that. They just said, there's no victims
Yeah,
and no monetary loss to anybody. And I said, then who's accusing me?
right.
And they were like, well, the United States government. I said, well, that's a pile of paper. I would like the United States government on the stand by 4 o'clock tomorrow. I want the IRS on this. Well, you can't do that. So I don't get to face my accuser. Oh, and by the way, they stacked the jury with Hillary Clinton employees. They had a judge who was an IRS prosecutor for 28 years. They gave me no discovery. They gave me discs of discovery that
Yeah.
were blank. And I had affidavits from a dozen people who are saying these discs are blank. I don't have any discovery. And it just continued on. They did not care. They were going to lie, cheat, steal. Whoever gets in 2024. And I've been saying for a while that you got to watch Ron DeSantis and that the as far as and this was a lot in the news today. Are we starting? Are we okay? We
Yeah,
gonna
we're going.
all right. This was a lot in the news today. There's a lot of interesting things that broke in the news today. Um, First off, there was a kind of a high table meeting between Ron DeSantis and Trump, and I think the perfect ticket would be because Trump still runs the various freedom coalitions and he's still got a very high rating and he's doing a lot of things behind the scenes. The perfect ticket is going to be Donald Trump with Ron DeSantis as his vice president because that
Ooh.
then guarantees in Florida. Remember, Trump can only run for 4 years. He can only be president for 4 years now because he's already
Okay.
been president 4 years,
Yep.
and he's too old to run for a second term.
Mm.
Perfect thing is you put Trump in for 4 years. Trump could actually then resign and hand the whole shebang over to Ron DeSantis, and then you have the Republicans controlling the presidency for 12 years, which would be ideal,
Wow.
especially with DeSantis. Even though DeSantis is probably a stronger character as far as that goes because he can totally take Florida, and he does not have he doesn't have the knee jerk trigger that
Oh
Trump
yeah.
has built into the media. So
Yeah.
because of Trump's previous reputation and everything that they've done to him, DeSantis is kind of squeaky clean on that.
Mm-hmm.
But him and DeSantis as the vice president would be the ultimate strategy, because then they both get in. Everybody's going to vote for him, and
Yeah.
again, they control the presidency for 12 years instead of just 4. Because if Trump just runs by himself, he gets in for 4. He can't run for another term. Then everything falls apart. And then what happens? That's the first interesting thing that happened.
Yeah.
Second interesting thing is that the Supreme Court made more rulings that overturned Second Amendment violations in New York, Los Angeles, whatever, and kicked it
Oh.
back down to the other courts. That's momentous as well, because they're basically just tearing apart. And this is what Clarence Thomas had said.
Hmm.
Clarence Thomas has said that he wanted a tax case because he felt that the IRS was totally overreaching, and
Mm-hmm.
they were doing all these things that were completely violations of the Fourth Amendment, 14th Amendment. Um, it's once again, there's no due process. They just come in and say, well, arbitrarily, you owe us X amount of dollars. Matter of fact, I had a woman, very close friend of mine, who also filed the 1099 original issue discount um, paperwork with the IRS and got a return.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went after him. Now he won on appeal, and they went back and retried him, and he had to go back to a prison camp, I think, for another 16 months.
Mm.
Well, now the IRS, even though his wife doesn't own the house, the IRS is now basically laying a lien on her house to sell the house, pay off the bank, basically take his property, to claim the $91,000 or something that he owes. So she called me crying today, asking if there was anything she could do.
Mm.
So working on that. But um, IRS violates due process all the time. They just say, well, we're going to lien you this, and go confiscate your bank account with no notice, no due process, no nothing,
It
which
seems to
violates all kinds of
it
laws.
seems to me like the Fed, that seems to be their go-to when they don't have a case on you. They just go to some sort of IRS tax money type thing that it just seems to be where
Well,
they
because
can.
there's no IRS definition for income.
Okay.
Actually, they have a definition of income, but it's so nebulous and so bizarre that, for example, the actual definition of income is if you have a bunch of money that makes money.
Yeah.
That's the biblical aspect of it. That you're supposed to work, actually.
Yeah.
So if I have $1 million and that $1 million makes 10% interest or whatever, that's
That's
considered income.
okay.
If I have apartment buildings or something that make money,
Yeah.
it's things or money that makes money.
Huh.
If you come work for me, or vice versa, and you work 40 hours a week, and I pay you in chickens, or a goat, or piles of grain or something, the bottom line is that is an income, because you're trading your time and your effort and your life, your 40 hours,
Yeah.
in exchange for remuneration. There's no income there. So, and the IRS just says, well, anything you make is income. Well, no, it's not.
Mm.
So there's that, because they have 19 feet of regulations, 19 feet of
I
regulations,
believe
and,
it.
and, and none of them are indexed. It's not like you can look through a law book, or do whatever. And believe me, I've read this stuff. It's super crazy. And for example, what we were doing with the 1099 OID process, the original issue discount, was that, okay, if you put $1 million in the bank loans that money out. They make all kinds of money off this on it's fractional interest banking, and they can loan out 99 cents against every dollar that you put in the bank, and then they keep those profits. Well, if you did that with Merrill Lynch or Dean Witter or Goldman Sachs or whatever, I mean, all those guys would go to prison
Yeah.
without
Right.
giving you a return. Well, the way you get a return is that you file all the money that goes into the bank and out of the bank. You file that with what's called the 1099-A, which is abandonment and acquisitions. And then at the end of the year, instead of the bank keeping the money, the bank has to then reimburse you the money that you made. And then the IRS, you can see why the banks don't want to do this, because they don't want to tell you that you could be reimbursed at the end of the year for all the money that you put in the bank, for all the money that they loaned under fractional interest banking and whatever else. So, that's why they wanted to keep it a big secret. Matter of fact, there were one of the CPAs that I worked with, there were two CPAs that were doing this. There was Alexander Adams and a woman named Jacqueline Coelho, and both of them respectively got $14 million and $9 million back for their clients. Well, the IRS sued them because they wanted them to stop filing their paperwork, because they were getting money back from the clients. It wasn't criminal.
Yeah.
It was all civil, and the only thing they wanted was an injunction to make these CPAs stop filing their paperwork so that their clients could get returned.
Right. Right.
So it's, and I did it, and I and they could not tell me what it was that I did wrong. They just said, "Well, you filed and you got money. You got to return." And that's why he's guilty. And it was the Pharisee defense that was like, if he wasn't guilty, he wouldn't be here.
Oh my
You
god.
know, that's what they used against Jesus, in other words.
God.
And the other thing was,
It
well, let's
shouldn't
just
be that nebulous to wrap your head around a charge to put someone in jail. Like my
correct.
head is spinning right now. Like
All right, I know. And the
what?
other one was when you present a bond, and I presented a bond to a bank to try to. These were other people. I helped like a dozen friends of mine presenting bonds to banks, and with all this paperwork that says if there's anything wrong with this bond, if there's anything insufficient, if there's anything you don't like about this, you just return it, and we're fine. Bob's
Yeah.
your uncle. We're done. In not one case did the bank ever return the bond. And it was funny was with the IRS, with the Department of Justice, with their infinite power, infinite money, infinite attorneys, whatever, could
Yeah.
not produce a single bond from the bank, not one.
Huh.
And I said, you show me one bank that one bond that they returned, because they monetized all the bonds. They took them, they stamped them, they did whatever. Therefore, they could never produce a single piece of original evidence.
Wow.
Oh, but because I submitted it, it's conspiracy to defraud the government. And I'm like, I never submitted these to the government. I submitted to banks. How can you claim it's you, the federal government, that's been damaged when you're nothing but a pile of paper and an
Yeah.
artificial corporation that was formed in 1879, has nothing to do with the Constitution?
Right.
No, but you're going to go to jail because Hillary Clinton's campaign manager was on my jury.
Good.
Katie Ingebrigtsen was the woman's name. Had two guys from Pakistan that had just flown in, weren't even citizens. It was a farce. It was a complete joke. And the problem was nobody helped me out. Nobody came to my defense. And the real challenge, Adam, with everybody in this whole movement is that none of us, none of the none of the righteous people stick together. None
Mm.
of us don't. If
That's
if
true.
you want to go to an abortion march, oh man, there's 100,000 people there.
Oh
You want
yeah.
to go burn down a city because you're black, there's all kinds of people there. If you want to be evil and a Democrat, not only are they all brainwashed, it's exactly like the sheep in Animal Farm. When the pigs are taken over, and if anybody comes up against them, they send the sheep, and the sheep just go bah, 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 and they drown out
Oh
any
yeah.
opposition.
Yeah.
And the one other thing I want to make a point of, because I think there's somebody that's putting this together, that the whole key to what the media is doing now is, and I think I'm going to call it, I want to salute, where people stand up and they go like this, and I want to, yeah, go like that, because I want to call it um, the 2+2=4 foundation, or the 4 foundation, because the
Yes.
whole key to the book 1984, what breaks Winston Smith and the propaganda that O'Brien uses, is that he holds up his fingers and he says, "How many fingers?" And every time Winston Smith goes 4, he turns up the juice, and he says, and if the government says it's 5,
Hmm.
he says it's still
Still
4. I have
four.
the right to make it 4, and he just keeps juicing them until he actually sees 5 fingers,
Yeah.
because he believes. And if you look at CNN, if you look at
Saddest
the
saddest ending to a book I've ever read in my life.
yeah, and
So fucking
again,
sad.
once they break him, once he sees 5 instead of 4, that's when he's sitting at the bar in the end, and the bullet enters his brain, and he loved Big Brother,
Yeah.
which is how that ends. And the one other thing that's interesting that happened today, there was a guy named, let me see, I wrote his name now, Brian Deese was the guy's name. He was in the State Department. Brian Deese quoted something today that I think it's a key. It's a linchpin point of what's going to happen in the future, where he called it, instead of saying the New World Order. This is a Department of State guy said, we're not going to let Vladimir Putin upset the liberal world order. That's what he called it, the liberal world
I did
order.
hear that today. Yes.
Yeah, so that's key. That's a code word now.
Yeah.
Or push is going to come to shove, and if they can't not put troops on the ground to fight the Russians now. The Russians are going to beat the crap out of them, and because our guys aren't trained and are skipping around in pink uniforms,
Oh my
and
god.
the Russians are going to kill them. And once that happens, the U.S. is not going to. We don't know how to back down. We don't know how to negotiate. The
No.
only
No.
thing that Putin wants is he wants the Donetsk region, because they're all ethnically Russian,
Right.
and they were being murdered and genocided by the Ukrainians. So he has no intention of taking over Ukraine. He wants that part of the Donbass back. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is that we don't know how to back down, and it's going to come to a nuclear conflict. And now that the New World Order, or the liberal world order,
Hmm.
now controls everything, they've got 6 months to do anything they want to do. Between now and the end of the year. that they control the presidency and the House and the Senate before, of course, they're all voted out, and just what's going to be a massive tsunami where they're going to stop a lot of their shenanigans. So anyway, so the Supreme Court overturning all this violation of Second Amendment stuff, which is great,
Yes.
because I think that
That was all Clarence Thomas, you're saying?
well, Clarence Thomas. Wait a minute. This is he wants to make it
Shalou.
right there.
Hey.
This is Shalou the Wonder Cat. What do you want to do? He
What's
wants to
up,
make an
baby?
appearance. I guess there you go. There's my buddy. All right, he's gonna go sit. He's gonna give me the butt now. What? You gonna sit over here?
Oh,
All
this is the best.
right. Okay, come here. Well, come here. Don't just give him the
He's
butt.
looking like the dragon dog thing from Neverending Story.
Oh, yeah. Faf. What was the name?
Falcor.
Falcor. Yeah, Falcor. Come on, Shalou. You're just fur. Come on, mother.
Now I'm gonna have dreams I'm riding this thing. uh, Come on,
There you go. He's
Otto.
looking at your face. He's making a very rare appearance on camera here.
Seriously.
Yeah, he never comes up here and hogs the camera. I don't know what he's doing. He's just doing something funny. All right, come here. So anyway, I just a lot of momentous stuff happened today, and of course it's the 1st of July. So here in California, we gas prices have dropped by like 9 cents, and of course here comes Gavin Newsom, governor. You can't just stand there. Come on. Come here. Gavin Newsom comes in, raises the gas tax by 3 cents. Which is steady.
Wow.
What are you gonna do? All right, what are you gonna do? You're gonna sit
That
here?
dude is a demon incarnate.
Yeah, really. I think it's the dippity do and the frost thing that's got in his brain. There you go. You can be right here. Sit right there.
Do you remember that video where he was in the wood when there was all the fires? I think it was last year or the year before. He's standing in the fires and he's got the smoke burning around him, and he's like, "This is a tragedy." And he's like
Yeah.
smiling. I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah,
god!"
it's his natural home, the flames of hell. So it's a. There you go. Okay.
Creepazoid. Nancy Pelosi's nephew.
Yeah, it's all kind of bad. All right, buddy. So you had some stuff you want to talk about? What's
Yeah.
up?
Honestly, that. I guarantee that's not gonna be like YouTube friendly. So maybe maybe we'll put that part on another network, and we'll see how it goes. We'll put it all out there.
Well,
Fuck it.
everybody loves a cat, so
That's
he's
true.
all
Yeah.
fine. So all right. So what do you got? I'm sorry.
All
to
right.
just lump
So I was gonna
stuff
go
with just,
happy, fluffy land and just do some YouTube friendly stuff.
All right, let's go.
With, like I said on the phone, like the dream stuff is stuff I don't hear you touch too much upon. Kind of what your thought of what dreams are. Are they a glimpse into another dimension? Are they another? Yeah, I've kind of thought that they're actually kind of a parallel universe sort of thing. And
Well, all the above. I mean, they come from. It's just interesting because you've got the in the separate lobes of the brain, and what's really interesting is what's now happening after 2012. So let's put it this way: you have the left hand side of the brain, which controls the right hand side of the body, and
right.
that's the dominant aggressive. Maybe he wants this. Could you grab that? I'm gonna grab something for him about. My wife's over there doing something. I'm gonna grab his tray over here, and you can put it in here, and then he's not up on the desk here. Um, um. Okay, when you go on the left and right hand side,
Hemispheres.
you have
Got it.
the superior anterior section of the brain, which is back here, actually, right in this area, which is the area that's ignited by psilocybin.
Oh shit.
By and it's funny. Everybody is Graham Hancock and Dr. Carl Kalaman and William Henry. I mean, all these gurus have just kind of stuck their head up their own ass, and they're telling you, what's going on in there, because it seems like they've all just like dropped acid or taken a bunch of shrooms,
Gurus are
and
like, yeah, they're running shit right now.
yeah, and they're just writing what their impressions are of whatever else without seeming to having any real function or idea of how it actually all operates. But okay, so they have the left hand side of the brain, which is the dominant aggressive right side of the brain, which thinks in terms of linear time, ABC, 1, 2, 3, you and me, like the Jackson said, and it organizes time into slots, and of course time can travel more quickly or more slowly depending on the amusement factor or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And at the same time, it deals in geometry, it deals in mathematics, 2 + 2 = 4, all that other stuff, and so, but now when you get into the right hand side of the brain, The
Mm.
right hand side of the brain that we call the passive feminine submissive part of the brain, which it's not really, but it absorbs everything. It's kind of funny. There's a saying that women hear and see everything, but pretend to see nothing. And so the right hand side of the brain thinks in terms of symbols, archetypes, color, art forms, music, fluidic motion, dance, ballet, whatever. It's all the expression of that. But it's the feminine side of the brain that exists in quantum time.
Huh.
The difference is that over the course of our evolution, and this is what's interesting about the Mayan calendar. The Mayan calendar it's not based on dates. It's actually based on the consciousness and evolution of humanity, of the brain of the planet as it develops.
Oh wow.
So when you understand that you've got the eastern and western parts of the brain, which are divided, actually, if you start in Gabon, Africa, which is unusual because that's where they claim that humanity evolved, and then you draw a straight line from Gabon, Africa. It goes right through Rome, and then it goes through Berlin, and then it goes all the way up into Stockholm. But that's our dividing line between East and West, which are the two parts of the brain.
Yeah.
And if you just imagine that over the course of like 4,000 years of peace, that you have an era or an age that's female,
Mhm.
where the matriarchal aspect is, and so that would be that this side of the brain would be covered up, and the matriarchal side of the brain would sort of run things. And of course, in those eras, food grows well. You're not worried about property. Everybody's making love to everybody else.
Can I
Love, love,
stop
love.
you one
Love.
second? How long a period of time is that
About
in your
4,000 years
four
of each
thousand
one.
years? Okay.
And then you have now the feminine side gets covered up, and now you got 4,000 years of the dominant side, which is where you have you have the warriors, you have war, you have climate change, you have women now become property because they have to be protected, so they're not taken away. They go with the land,
Mm.
so therefore, if you have a piece of land, the women come with it, so make the crops grow and have children and what have you. So both sides of the brain, one side's covered up, the other side's covered up. That goes through these eras. Now, with the beginning of the 20th century, you move out of a masculine feminine dominance and right as the new age of Aquarius, because we're in a period of time where you have a cusp. And the cusp is, whereas in astrology you have a cusp where you'll have two overlapping ideas or concepts that last about a week or so. So if you're born on the cusp of, I don't know, when's your birthday, Adam?
December 3rd, 81.
Okay, so you're born under Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Walt Disney's birthday was like December 6th, and I think Nostradamus' birthday is somewhere around there.
Oh wow.
But if you get to the end of the month around Christmas, you're in a cusp in between Sagittarius and Capricorn.
Okay.
So you're going to have the influence of both things as they kind of fade away.
Huh.
Well, if you imagine that on a grand scale, the cusp is somewhere between 300 and 500 years
Yeah.
while you're moving through these ages. So the true age of Aquarius doesn't truly start until almost until the year, well, 2489 AD is when the exact date um, of when the solstices shift and all that. But right now, we're at the beginning of the dawning of the new age, the age of Aquarius, when we're moving into the Aquarian age. So you're moving into something that you would call the aeon of the child, because you're in a balance between the masculine and the feminine. So now, for the first time after 2012, you have the veils on both sides of the brain have been lifted.
Ah.
So if you'll notice that the only reason that Trump gets elected is because people are now feeling the lies.
Yeah.
People are now understanding that the media is total crap, and that it's an instrument of control.
Right. Right.
And Trump managed to get around them. That's why they're so desperate about controlling Facebook and YouTube and all this other stuff, because that's how Trump got elected. People stopped listening
Yeah.
to the garbage media and began to see the truth through alternative media like what you're doing. So, and that's how he got elected. And that's why they're so savagely tamped down on that with computer algorithms that then, search and destroy
Yeah.
anybody that has like a positive story about Trump, or anybody that was exposing the Hunter Biden laptop or what. I mean, you saw it happen with the media,
You got to get
and people
creative.
just,
You have to get
yeah,
really creative. You got to like not say certain words and post it in such a way that it's like going to actually be seen. It's
right.
crazy.
So, but understand that from December 21st of 2012, we're I call it the night of the jaguar,
Yep.
because if you look at all these Mayan calendars, you'll see that there's a big jaguar underneath the calendar with his mouth open.
Hmm.
And so December 21st of 2012, we're swallowed by that jaguar. And so we're now being digested, if you will,
Yeah.
in the dream time, in that dream state where everything's being bounced around. And the end of that 13-year period is going to be December 21st, the solstice, which is the alignment with galactic center
Yeah.
of 2025.
Oh
So
shit.
this is why everything's coming to a head in 2025. You have the biblical cycle where nations usually do not last beyond 250 years. You have 200 years to obey certain laws and codes in the Bible. The Ten Commandments are the base aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that, you enter into a 50-year period that could be called the fifth cycle of discipline. In other words, you have 50 years, which would start around 1970, between 1969 and 1970. Now you've got 50 years to maybe turn yourself around. We obviously haven't. Things have just gotten worse. And your nation state is basically raped and enslaved. And it happens in the Bible over and over and over again.
Right.
And it's really not even fair because you have these prophets in the Old Testament. By the way, the word prophet only meant teacher of righteousness. It didn't really have anything to do with predicting the future.
Hmm.
It actually meant singer of righteousness,
Nice.
because in the old days they would sing the scriptures and they would turn them into kind of hit songs. I mean, David
Ah.
David had a hit song. It was like Saul has killed his thousands, but David's killed his tens of thousands. That was like the Beatles back then.
Nice.
And so they would sing things because it's much easier to remember scripture and Bible stuff and whatever if you sing it.
Oh yeah.
So we're at the end of a 250-year cycle, which ends 2025. We're at the end of a Pluto cycle because when the when we signed the Constitution, obviously July 4 of 1776, you had Pluto at 27 degrees Capricorn. So what it's happening is that, and this is how I predicted how the Russian war would begin. Actually, the only two people in the media that predicted the day was myself and Alex Jones. You got to give Alex some credit. He was the one saying that these generals were telling him when it was going to start, and I just pointed out to no, it's the first time that Pluto goes across 27 degrees Capricorn, and Putin knows all about this. I mean, the
Hmm.
Russians are all about astrology and remote viewing, and because remember they did away with God, so they were the ones basically spear fronting the human potential movement. I think
Hmm.
um, that was why that's why the military got into remote viewing, because you
Oh,
know
here we go.
well, the Russians the Russians were out winning medals and we were still putting our jocks on in the locker room,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they claimed to have a psychic. Well, they had a psychic. They had a psychic who claimed he could enter the White House,
Yeah.
stand behind Richard Nixon, and Richard Nixon was going through these classified documents, and this guy was not only looking at them, but reciting verbatim what these documents were, and the military
Whoa.
flipped out. So they started what they called the psychic space race.
Nice.
And the only place, and it was after a couple of journalists, Chris and Grindler, I think it was, but they wrote a book called you can get it online for like $12, but it's called Soviet Psychic Discoveries 1 and 2. And
Nice.
the second time they came out of Russia, they were arrested for espionage. I mean, they take this stuff really seriously.
Wow.
And so in about 75, 76, they approached Stanford Research Institute, which is like one of the weirdest places on earth.
Hmm.
And they said, we need to be able to have a psychic program that we can teach our soldiers to be able to catch up with the Russians in the psychic space race. And I know this sounds weird, but I was taking an advanced psychology class at Stanford before I transferred to USC, and Russell Targ came in with I think it was Hal Puthoff and Ingo Swann, and they said, "You guys want to play a game?" And we're like, "Okay." So they gave us all these protocols to be able to do. It's like we were putting Star Trek bridges in our head and traveling on a screen and doing whatever. And the whole point of it was we kicked two kids out of the class. They were going to be the targets that we were going to view, and then um, the idea was that Friday they were just going to wander around campus. So at 12 o'clock, they're kick them out of a car. And of course, they call Stanford the farm because it's gigantic. It's
Yeah.
just it's a big wood, and so and they just wander around. They had a twister spinner. This is how advanced this was. Every 15 minutes, they would just spin the spinner, and they would just walk randomly in the direction that the spinner would point. And then we wrote down at 2 p.m. You're in the quad by the fountain, looking up at the looking south towards the Hoover Tower, and so we predicted where they would be
Yeah.
at that time. Well, the military applications of that are amazing. Where's Saddam Hussein? Where is Bin Laden? And actually, I I was brought back into the military program through something called Project Foresight, where I got a call from this lady colonel in the E-ring at the Pentagon that started handing me all these targets. I was recommended by somebody else that said, whatever it is you're doing, you got to talk to Sean Morton. And at first they had me looking at germs. I was looking at biological warfare stuff, which is very strange.
Hmm.
And then they started giving me these other coordinates, and I was like, well, I see
Oh no! Hold on,
it's
Sean.
yeah.
I gotta. Your meeting will end in 10 minutes.
Oops. Okay.
Provide unlimited meetings or more. Maybe we'll take a. You want to take a break in 10?
Well, I have other shows I have to do
Okay,
tonight.
yeah,
So
you do, don't you? Aren't you doing Strange
yeah.
Universe soon?
I got Strange Universe at 10, and then I'm doing Wendy at the Granada Forum. She wants me to come on at 8. So it's
Oh
and
man.
I'm not sure I can do it because my throat is I have throat cancer, which is why I sound like I've been smoking and drinking for my whole life. I sound like Art Bell now, which is weird. So
You're sounding better than you did when you first got back on the air. You're sounding better.
well,
I don't know.
I'm living off cough drops and throat coat tea. So and I'm still
Shit,
trying to burn off the cancer using black salve and DMSO.
man.
And I had a big package of FedEx. I had a big package of anti-cancer stuff, and FedEx lost it, like FedEx says FedEx does. So, excuse me a second.
Jesus. Man,
Uh,
if I only got 10 minutes, I want to cram some stuff in here.
we'll go. I'm just rambling away. You're the host. Whatever you want to do.
All right. Okay. Near death experiences. I've never heard you touch in on that. You think they're BS? You think they're I don't know. I've heard some wacky ones. I've heard some ones that yeah. I've heard ones where like people who never heard of Jesus saw Jesus when they got over there.
Sure.
Total atheists.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, what you're doing once again is you're stepping outside the car, and so now you're either on a freeway or in a field or whatever. But you're just talking about I mean, I lived in a monastery in Nepal, which was called Tangbache.
Yeah.
And the monks that I lived with becoming a novitiate there, actually, I lived at the Dalai Lama's compound in Dharamsala in northern India for January, February, March, May, for about 4 months. And then I had a meeting with the Dalai Lama, and I said, I don't think my journey's over. And the Dalai Lama pointed at this monastery, said, you need to go there.
Nice.
And all I remember thinking was, man, that's far away. It was like, because it was right at the foot of Mount Everest. And I was like, oh, geez. So I took the whole experience of, getting to Nepal, getting a visa, doing all this stuff, taking a train, taking a bus, then walking the last 400 miles. And anybody that tells you that hiking or trekking in the Himalayas is fun, punch that person in the face, because it's not. It's horrible.
Oh,
You got a headache every day because of the altitude. The
right.
sun doesn't go all the way through you. But going into the monastery and had a letter from the Dalai Lama that said, please accept him. And so they were fine. But they were Karma Kagyu black hat monks. So their whole thing is reincarnation, past lives, future lives,
Hmm.
um, astral travel. So, so the point is that once you disconnect, and that's what my next book was going to be about. The Hitchhiker's Guide to Astral Travel is what it was going to be called, or is going to be called,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about taking kind of a totem animal, if you will. Um, for example, my experience. Okay, you actually got to meet my Shalou the Wonder Cat, my buddy here,
Cat,
and
cat.
he's now he's, he's now sleeping on the table here, which is unusual. But he just likes when I start talking, he likes the sound of my voice, and so he always comes up. He knows when I'm on the radio because it like calms him down or something. But if you go into there's a space between worlds, between lives, that the Buddhists call the bardo.
Hmm.
And when you enter the bardo, depending on how beaten up you are, there's usually like a cabin or a house, and the word shalu, actually you'll see in most of the pictures of Buddha, he's got a white lion, a blue-eyed white lion that sleeps under his chair. And shalu means guardian of the realm of golden light. So Shalou, and this big white lion, actually guards this realm. And what he does is he walks you through to make sure that you're not attacked by the pretas, because there's all kinds of weird energy sucking ghosts and stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff in between
Of
the
course
dimensions.
there is. Jesus.
Yeah. So if you have your white lion with you, if you have Shalou with you,
Yep.
uh, in my case, I mean, Shalou the lion loved eating these things, loved jumping on top of them, and they would go squee, and they make this really funny sound. And
Squee.
and there were like bears there, and he used to chase the bears in the woods, but you're in this cabin and you're healing yourself in between lifetimes. And you can go into different doors, and they will take you to timelines or experiences, what have you. And when you're ready to go back, you go through a red door. And when you open this red door, there's like you just have to imagine the biggest orgy that you've ever seen. So just imagine everybody on the planet all having sex. Everybody who's having sex is having sex right then. And the idea is that as you walk through this, as you tiptoe through this ginormous orgy, um, your parents actually having sex will be the ones that will kind of grab your soul, and then you get sucked back into your own reality because
Holy
you're
shit.
choosing these people to then ride back into a life on Earth. Now the
Wow.
challenge is that when you die, the people that go into the light, as they say, which is
Mm-hmm.
it's not really a good thing, but it's literally like it's like a bird hitting a fan. It dissolves your personality. It makes you it fragments you. So going into this light just goes it just
Hmm.
splatters you all over the windshield. So when you then return, you don't have any memory of your previous existences, and so you kind of have to start over. And that's where the whole wheel of samsara comes in, because with no recollection of your previous lives, you're starting from scratch again. And then it's like it takes 7 years for you to figure out how to move your body, and another 7 years to figure out how to sexualize it, another 7 years to be educated.
Right.
So you have to imagine the
Always
samsara wheel.
sevens, huh? That's so weird.
Yeah. So when you imagine that, I mean, if it's in a wheel, it's like a dolphin, and you come up and you break the surface, where maybe 10% of your life is spent in the eternal,
Hmm.
which is being spent in prayer or church or what have you. So you only take that away, and then you go back down, and you start getting sick, and you start getting old, and 80-90% of your existence is all about supporting the physical body.
Yeah.
uh, you have to make money, you have to live in a house, you have to get a car, you have to get clothes, you have to do whatever.
Hmm.
So it's just all mundane, and you just go round and round and round in the wheel of samsara. So the idea is you want to break that to basically make it like a stairway to heaven, if you will,
Hmm.
to attain a nirvana state, which is when you don't have that. And then but it's all, you just understand that it's eternal, and that you ascend to another level. Now you can the idea of going into past lives and the meditation that you do, there's a very certain chant that you do, a meditation. And then as you hurtle back through time, you then go through a silver ring. So
Oh
you just
yeah.
have to imagine your birth, and that you don't want to look at your birth or your death, for that matter, as a beginning or an ending point. It all has to do with these lives, all being sewn together in a nonstop stream. And so when you then enter that silver ring, it takes you back through a void, and in that void you land usually in your past life, but at the place where you died. So
Hmm.
you usually come into something where you're getting your head chopped off, or you're being tortured, or falling off a cliff, or
Really?
dying of natural causes. And then you go back through that, and you can then go through various traumatic incidents. And if you live those in the past life, let's say you were burned in a fire or something, um, you know that that's why you're afraid of fire, you're afraid of water, or you have particular fears in this lifetime. So you can then deal with that.
Hmm.
In my case, it's very weird, because the first time it happened to me, and Rinpoche Lobsang Tundun, who was the head of the monastery, um, we went all the way back to, my whole thing was that I always had a problem with my throat. And we went back and back and back, where I was like, and I don't know if any of this is real, I'm just giving my impressions of it, but I went back to being a general in Atlantis. And the Atlanteans were putting down a revolt in Egypt, which was a colony of Atlantis at the time. And this was before the deluge, and before they, in a desperation, they built the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid is it's a prophecy in stone, actually, that predicts a 7,000-year cycle, which is why another reason why I know what's going to happen, studying it and so on. But so I'm surveying a battlefield, and I look down, and there's some guy, and he's standing on a pile of bodies, and I was like, "What's he doing with that bow?" And then
Hmm.
there's an arrow that comes right here, and I shook my head up, and it goes, and it hits me right in the throat. So it's weird that now in this existence, that this whole thing, because of the torture uh, that I went through. I mean, I was beaten up. I was thrown into solitary confinement for months at a time. Um, again, for filing paperwork, for trying to help people, for doing nothing other than messing with these people, and then figuring out their system and talking about it.
Yep, they
Um,
don't like that.
but I also, I went almost 16 months with no medical care. I had a tumor hanging out of my neck that was 13 centimeters. It was the size of a goose egg hanging on my neck. And people would say, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I have cancer." And these ear, nose, and throat guys were like, "Nothing I can do for you. You need to go to a teaching hospital," and they would not transfer me anywhere.
Hmm.
To
Oh, there it goes.